Watch from just the past 24 hours. It should make your heart, well, sink.
But the list of targets was right out of Trump's relentless rhetorical playbook. The bomber's enemies were his enemies. He has said so again and again and again.
Everybody should stop pretending that Trump doesn't really know what he's doing. That when he says these things, he knows exactly what he's trying to encourage.
Donald Trump fails the country. He doesn't just fail Democrats. He fails Democrats and Republicans and all Americans in between.
He's refused to in any way acknowledge what role his rhetoric may have played in cultivating the current political climate.
This president has an obligation to stop picking on reporters.
The president has created a culture of comfort for violent rhetoric and actual violence.
He spends most of his time at his rallies throwing verbal bombs at all the people that receive these bombs in the mail.
And one fake news CNN political analyst even blaming yours truly for the bomb scare, especially as it relates to Robert De Niro. This is a disgrace. Watch this.
I just want to go back to that for a second, because everybody said, why Robert De Niro? He hasn't criticized the president since the Tony Awards in June. But you found that it's what happened, what Sean Hannity says had a direct link.
Well, may have. We don't know who it is. We don't know the motive. But what was fascinating is you see a direct pattern between the president's attacks on Twitter and the stage, it being echoed and amplified by Fox News and other folks in the conservagentia. But De Niro's not like the others, right? Why Robert De Niro? Well, one of the things I found is that October 15th, Sean Hannity was doing a whole segment blasting De Niro for things he said on the Alec Baldwin show, of all things, in which he said that Trump allies will regret it because they made a deal with the devil. So that all of a sudden becomes Robert De Niro's calling the president a devil and us devil worshippers, in effect, you know? It's the playing the victim card, but it was top of mind 10 days ago. And it's interesting to be see what is that when we find out who this is.
Now, John Avlon is both lying and he's ignorant and, frankly, recklessly irresponsible. Now, he is the walking embodiment of why so many Americans just don't trust the media, why they chant CNN sucks. Maybe you should actually watch a full episode of Hannity or listen to my radio show. Then he would actually see how I have been repeatedly calling on political vilification in this country to stop, especially the confrontations, how I deplore, disavow all incivility and acts of violence from the left and the right. By the way, if Avlon ever watched my show, listen to my radio show, he would know how much I value law and order and the safety of everyone, including people I disagree with passionately. For example, when President Obama's security was threatened in 2014, I spoke out over and over and over again how we need to protect our president, even though I had strong disagreements with him. Watch this. We have 3 incidents. We have the fence jumper, made it much further into the White House, even past the stairs going up to the residence, which is scary. We have the second incident in 2011, 6 shots fired at the White House, and took them 4 days to determine that they thought it had nothing related to do with the White House, which I disagree with. And then a guy with a gun got on an elevator with the president of the United States. ISIS, our enemies are watching this. We got to protect our president. Every elected official, every cabinet member, every member of Congress, the Senate, deserves security. Everyone deserves safety. And by the way, my heart goes out to anyone who's ever been threatened or harmed. Because you know what? I know firsthand how it feels. I've been through more than, frankly, I'm willing to make public, including white powder mailed to me, telling me it's anthrax. I had an assistant of mine scared to death, put in isolation for hours as a result of one incident. And I've had numerous other real threats in my career to both myself and my family. Lunatics, they have no political boundaries. And to suggest that honest, vigorous, hard-hitting debate and criticism is somehow the motivating force behind one fringe violent individual is intellectually lazy, John Avlon, and frankly, just nothing but a cheap attempt to capitalize off a serious incident. You should be ashamed of yourself. And remember, I never blamed Bernie Sanders because one of his loyal supporters shot Republican lawmakers, nearly killed Steve Scalise on a baseball field last year. As a matter of fact, I said the opposite. Take a look. I'm not blaming Bernie Sanders.
No, of course
Bernie Sanders supporters. No, this was one nut. Remember the Bernie Sanders supporter? The one that targeted Republicans at baseball practice, leaving Congressman Steve Scalise fighting for his life? Well, was the media blaming Democrats for that? No. And by the way, they shouldn't have. And I don't blame Bernie either. I don't blame Bernie either. It would be irresponsible to tie him to what one nut supporter does. I've said many times, there are deranged individuals on both sides of the aisle, and they alone are responsible for their evil actions. And by the way, this brings us to our next point, the left's double standard. While the mainstream media now condemns what they see as destructive rhetoric from only the right, they may want to reflect inward first. Per usual, in just the past 24 hours alone, the anti-Trump vitriol from the mainstream destroy Trump media has been downright despicable, and we've got the tape. Take a look.
When you keep stirring that pot, and you have leaders, the President of the United States, people listen to him. He's no longer on a talk show. He's the President of the United States. And this is whipping up people, and you will see people respond.
He was elected to be President of the United States, not, a mental patient.
This is just escalating, and it's only probably going to get worse if he doesn't change his tone.
Maybe they should be lecturing Maxine Waters and company. Create a crowd, follow them into grocery stores, department stores, gas stations. They're not wanted anywhere anymore. And what you just saw is nothing new, because the left's hatred of all things Trump has been boiling over since the day he and Melania came down the escalator. Here's just a small sampling of the insanity.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick.
How dare he say the things he does? Of course I want to punch him in the face.
Right. I want to send the military to the White House to get him.
Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president? It's been a while. And maybe it's time.
Tyrants, number one, want to denigrate the people that go out, the fourth estate, the journalists who go out and try to determine what the truth is.
I want to read the definition of treason.
When do we see almost a shadow government come out and say, we cannot side with the government?
We're oddly influential with the guy who wants to kill us.
There's a sign out there that's been hung up in the White House or outside the White House saying, if you're not white, you're not especially welcome.
So you know what? Yeah, with rhetoric like that, it's kind of odd that they're now blaming Donald Trump and his allies for the actions of a lunatic, especially since multiple deranged far-left individuals have been what? We've been watching now for weeks, harassing, attacking, threatening Republicans all over the country. Just in recent weeks, we've been warning you, Rand Paul's been warning you, something horrible's going to happen. Doesn't matter if it's left or right, but the left's silence when it's their side has been deafening and worse. And some elected officials actually sent out marching orders to harass, intimidate cabinet officials, elected officials, and candidates. White powder mailed to the president, President Trump, Secretary of Defense Mattis, FBI Director Wray, CIA Director Haspel. That's just 3 weeks ago. President's son, who was also targeted with a suspicious package. Don Jr.'s ex-wife hospitalized because of that package. A truck with a Trump bumper sticker, that was set on fire. You have two Republican candidates in Minnesota were punched. One a woman, another a man with severe injuries. He's cold-cocked from behind. 6 weeks, bad concussion. A Republican campaign manager in Nevada, that he was assaulted. There were dozens more incidences of vandalism, assault, harassment, including top Republicans stalked in airports, run out of restaurants repeatedly. We've shown you this videotape. And while we constantly condemn acts of violence on both sides of the aisle, when something happens to a conservative, well, Democrats have been missing in action, noticeably silent. We're going to have a lot more on this throughout the show. But first, more big news on the looming crisis at our southern border tonight. The migrant caravan continues.